For as long as life lasts, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha until I realize Nibbana. When we chant this, it's a way of reminding ourselves, what am I doing? What is important in this life? And taking refuge, we give that importance. Without taking refuge, we don't have much to stand on or hold on to. It's like 50 years ago, I sailed across the Atlantic Ocean with 3 other people. And the first thing I was taught on the boat, and I knew this because I used to go sailing out at sea, not far from the continent, but to sail across the Atlantic was another thing. So the first I had to learn, you always have one hand holding onto the boat. There's a railing all around the deck. So you always hold on. Why is that? Because if you go overboard and you're in a sailboat at sea, if the seas are rough, you could be lost. So it's a life-saving thing to always hold on with one hand. And I think taking refuge is not so different from that. If we always have one part of ourselves, one part of our attention is always directed towards the Dhamma, that will be a safety for us. A safety in terms of keeping precepts, in terms of restraining the mind, and in terms of being able to develop the path. So those 3 things, and it gets even more deep as we contemplate what it means to hold the refuge primary and supreme in our hearts. So this is chapter 23 from the Dhammapada, the elephant. As an elephant in battle endures an arrow shot from a bow, so will I endure verbal abuse. Many people indeed lack virtue. The tamed elephant is the one they take into a crowd. Best among humans is the tamed person who endures verbal abuse. The elephant has been often used in days of old by kings in battle, and the elephant could endure the arrows. How easy it is for us to feel offended when somebody speaks to us in a way that we deem offensive. So where is the offense? Who is getting offended and who is offending? And what is it that makes us feel offended? So one who is tamed in the mind can go into a crowd. Perhaps we will not feel those arrows of verbal abuse or other kinds of maltreatment. So this is just an example to us of how we ourselves can learn to receive the insults of life. But how do we receive that in the mind? What kind of verbal insults do we inflict on ourselves internally, invisibly, silently? And you might say, oh, I don't do that. So it's just a contemplation. It's for us to examine. Do we do that? Or does it happen when somebody disappoints us and doesn't behave in a way that we think they should? Then do we hurl verbal abuse on them? Do we do that? And if we do, we may not say anything, but the mind is busy creating judgments. Look at that. Oh, that person did such and such. How dare they? And off we go, hurling abuse at the other person. And yet, because we're Buddhist practitioners, it's very easy to become smug and say, I keep the precepts. I have no hostility. I have no enmity towards anyone. But if we peel away the layers and look more deeply, we may find ourselves being abusive because the mind is so quick. There's the form of someone we see, and the impingement of that form on consciousness has all its associated connections, memories that impact consciousness. And the next thing we know, there's an unpleasant response in the mind. There's an opinion about the person, a not liking, a disapproving, or a criticism. We don't say anything because we're good people, but the mind is busy. So at least the lips are a little bit tamed, but the mental sankhara are busy. They're jumping, they're attacking. We are shooting arrows, but we call ourselves loving. We practice metta, or we have a lot of compassion. But what about those in-between moments when we slip back into perhaps unskillful habits? But it's easy to put the shoe on the other foot and call the other person unvirtuous. Reading from this same chapter, in the past, this mind went wandering wherever it wished, as it liked, and as it pleased. Now I will restrain it wisely, as an elephant keeper does an elephant in rut. But if we restrain the mind wisely, even as an elephant keeper controls an elephant who may be that much out of control. So it's possible through the practice of the 4 satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, for us to train our minds so that we will not become wild, unrestrained in body, in action, with speech, verbally, or even with thought. And we have to recognize that that is a possibility. And then if we don't manage it, supposing we do react very unskillfully when someone speaks to us in a way that is hurtful, if we react to that and feel that we've done something unskillful, we must try not to repeat that. But at the same time, can we forgive ourselves? Can we say, this is not to be done? And we restrain, we refrain. And this is how we teach ourselves. So it isn't just an unexamined life, but it's an examined life that we must live, where we are constantly students of our own life. How are we doing? What are we doing? How can we restrain when we go off course? How can we continue when we're on course and not be discouraged by the hurdles, the ruts, or the deep ditches that we fall into? We just pull ourselves out and stand up again and hold to the Dhamma as our true refuge. Delight in vigilance, protect your own mind. So vigilance is a protection. What can we do to be vigilant so that we don't slip off the path in an unconscious, unmindful moment? And it can happen so easily, so quickly. So the Buddha says, delight in vigilance. delight in it. Get joy. I'm keeping precepts. We notice greed and we restrain it. Or we notice the insulting commentary in the mind and we refrain from that. We turn our minds to that which is wholesome. We abandon unwholesomeness as soon as it arises, if possible. And we delight in doing that because we know that when we're delighting in vigilance, then we're on the path to Nibbana. We're on the path to freedom from this world, from all this challenge that we face as human beings. This vigilance is not just so that we can enjoy life or have freedom, which makes us feel good all the time. It's very different than that. It's a transcendence of the world. It's a going beyond greed and ill will, going beyond attachment, bondage to worldly pleasure and fear of pain. It's a freedom from that fear, freedom from anger, freedom from mental dukkha. That would be the complete liberation from mental illness. The body, we cannot save the body. Impossible. And that would not give us freedom from mental suffering. This delighting in vigilance leads us to that which will free us from every kind of mental suffering. So then, even if the body is suffering, the mind remains persevering, enduring, peaceful, equanimous, in present moment awareness, compassionate and loving, patient, a patient endurance, contented and wise. Can we do that? We start with every small step, every breath that we take is to be observed and guided in the direction of freeing ourselves, liberating the mind from suffering. Our conditioning is so strong that if somebody is abusive towards us, we will just jump into fear, resistance, reaction, freezing, like we feel numb. Some difficult past conditioning may create a kind of numb feeling in the body, which may also result in a numbness in the mind. There could be such a strong reaction that we run away, just can't bear it. We can't process it. So we have to be compassionate to ourselves, be aware and reflect. If somebody is experiencing that kind of emotional trigger associating the abuse or the difficult encounter with something that happened when we were maybe very small. So then, as soon as it's possible for us to recall present moment awareness, reflecting on what's happening, noticing fear reaction and the wish to lash out or beginning to lash out at that person, first thing we could refrain from that. We could try to get any kind of reflectivity and mindfulness of what is happening. To stop and try to bring ourselves into the moment, into the present moment. Nowhere to run. We can't escape. This is karmic. We talk ourselves back into being present, to staying present, to being aware, to accepting, receiving, and forgiving, to feeling, allowing the feeling, and calming the mind, calming the chitta, and allowing this to settle a little bit before we respond. Before we engage with that person, so that if we do engage, we can do it skillfully. If we don't have any insight into being triggered, at least we have a precept, right speech, maybe right listening, we could say. I misunderstood. And try to forgive that person. Try to bring up goodwill in the place of ill will. For somebody whose mind is not so tamed, like a tamed elephant, in such difficult situations, we could have a lot of fear. And we could be shaking, trembling, crying, upset. So we have to calm the body, calm the chitta, calm the heart, and then give ourselves enough resources to be able to bring forth some kind of gentleness, forgiveness, and a feeling of, I'm okay, I'm not going to react. Many scenarios. If we've had some practice and we've been able to tame the mind and learn some satipatthanas, like mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mental states, and mindfulness of Dhammas, then it might be possible for us to respond in a way that understands emptiness. Who is it that is talking? Is there anyone? It's just unskillful activity. You're meeting a wild elephant, but you're trying to be a tame one. So you bow. You bow to the Dhamma in your heart and you forgive. You see the emptiness within yourself. Who is it that is being scared, that is giving vent or enabling fear? And you abandon it. This is difficult to do, but even the suggestion of anicca, it's impermanent. This is what's happening, but it's going to end. You feel frozen, but you know that that feeling will eventually pass and you'll be able to speak in a good way or listen without being so angry. Or you just see the not selfness, the ownerlessness. You feel the ownerlessness of those words. Who do they belong to? Disown them and realize they have no solid owner. Now, that's a very wise way of looking and receiving. We might be able to do it for 1 minute, and then at minute 2, the kilesas get going. The defilements take off again. It really does depend on our own development as human beings, our own abilities, our own skills, our awareness, and it's different for everyone. I think about my teacher in India when he was shot. His assassin came into his room at night to kill him and actually shot him. My teacher had so much compassion. He said to him, "You foolish man, you're going to go to jail. You have children. You have a wife. What have you done?" He spoke to him like a parent, like a father, not with anger, but with compassion. Who can do that when they've been attacked and shot mortally? Who can do that? So there's the extremes of how we respond to abuse. And we are where we are. If we're not able to live up to the highest, at least we know there is illumination within us. And little by little, we're developing the ability to know that, to abandon the kilesas and to respond in the most beautiful way that we can. So even if somebody is being uglier than we have ever imagined a human being to be, we want to end the battle completely. And this is what it is to make peace. What is Nibbana? It's the highest peace. What is the highest peace? To walk away from war. Peace doesn't engage in conflict. It doesn't fight. That's why we don't get in these arguments, because it's so dangerous. It's just a whole bundle of kilesas right there. The worldly views fighting with one another. It never ends. It never ends. And what we're trying to do by sitting quietly and silently and observing the movements of the mind is we're trying to bring the mind to silence. So it's when the mind is silent that it becomes purified. It's a purification where you purify the mind so that it only holds light. It has no darkness left in it. And the vigilance of that purification is a joy. We take joy and delight in purifying. And when the mind is stuck or in a deep hole and it can't climb out, we tend to it patiently. We give it medicine. What kind of medicine? Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. So the loving, compassionate, joyful, patient embrace, which is equanimous and calming. We calm the chitta again and again and again until it cools and radiates its light. That light of the mind is never really obscured. It's like behind every cloud, the sun is still shining. And the kilesas are just clouds that obscure the mind's inner radiance. There is illumination within us. Our job is to discover it. Discover. This means take away the cover. We discover it. We know it. We begin to experience it and know it directly. Then Nibbana is possible. We must realize that, each one of us, for ourselves. Nibbana is possible, doable, realizable. It's in our own heart. Just to develop the ability to know that. To develop the Dhamma eye. From a state of blindness, we begin to see